The first time Isabella Hart played the song, every criminal in the room stopped breathing. It happened at 1:13 inches the morning, beneath the glowing streets of Shinjuku, in a hidden jazz club with no sign on the door, no windows, and no guests who used their real names. Outside, Tokyo shimmered in sheets of rain, neon signs melting red and violet across the wet pavement. Inside, the air smelled like cigarette smoke, expensive whiskey, and secrets men would kill to keep. Isabella sat at the grand piano beneath a low red spotlight, her fingers moving over the keys like they belonged to someone else. She did not know the song. That was the problem. She had never seen the sheet music. She had never heard another pianist play it. She had no memory of learning it. But sometimes, when the hour grew late and the loneliness in her chest became too heavy to ignore, the melody came out of her hands on its own. Soft at first, then aching, then intimate enough to feel like a confession whispered against skin. The men in the room were used to violence, but not beauty. They were used to deals sealed in blood, but not a song that could make a killer look down at his glass, as if remembering the one person he had failed to save. Isabella kept her head lowered as she played. That was one of the rules at the Red Lantern. Do not look too long at the customers. Do not ask names. Do not react when men arrive with bruised knuckles or leave with blood on their cuffs. And above all, never play after 1:30 unless the owner gives permission. But tonight the song had pulled her under before she could stop herself. She felt it in fragments, a white dress she couldn't see clearly, rain on black marble, a man's hand hovering near hers but not touching, a low voice saying something in Italian against her ear. Then the club doors opened. The sound was quiet, almost polite, but every man in the room went still. Isabella's fingers faltered on the keys. She felt the shift before she looked up. It was not fear exactly. Fear was loud. Fear moved. Fear spilled drinks, whispered prayers, reached for weapons. This was worse. This was obedience. A line of men in black entered first, spreading silently along the walls. Their suits were tailored, their expressions empty, their eyes scanning exits, hands, reflections, shadows. Behind them came a man who did not need to raise his voice to own the room. He was tall, dressed in a black coat over a charcoal suit. His dark hair brushed back from a face that seemed carved from grief and control. He moved slowly, calmly, like violence had already introduced itself, and now walked behind him like a servant. The owner of the Red Lantern stepped forward and bowed his head. "Mr. Santoro," he said, barely above a whisper. Isabella heard the name and felt nothing, but the room felt everything. Nico Santoro. Even in a city built on quiet power, his name moved like a blade. An Italian mafia boss whose empire stretched from Sicily to Monaco, from New York ports to Tokyo nightclubs. A man believed to have survived 3 assassination attempts, buried 2 rival families, and once shut down an entire harbor because someone touched a woman under his protection. He stopped near the bar. Then he heard the song. His face changed. Not much. Not enough for most people to notice. But Isabella noticed because she was looking directly at him now, against every rule she had made for herself. His cold expression cracked for half a second. His eyes lifted to her, and the world narrowed. Isabella's hands froze above the keys. The final note died in the smoke-filled silence. No one moved. Nico Santoro walked toward the piano. Each step felt measured. Dangerous. Impossible. The kind of walk that made men decide whether they loved their lives enough to step aside. His bodyguard stayed back, but every eye followed him. Isabella wanted to stand, wanted to run, wanted to apologize for a crime she did not understand, but she remained seated, because something about him terrified her, and something about him felt like a memory her body recognized before her mind could. He stopped at the edge of the piano. The red light cut across his face, catching the sharp line of his jaw and the controlled tension in his mouth. He looked at her as if he had seen a ghost walk out of his own grave. Then he whispered, in a voice so low only she could hear, "You came back." Isabella's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. "Do I know you?" For 1 second, the silence that followed felt more violent than any gunshot. Nico did not blink. His eyes moved over her face with devastating restraint, as if he was memorizing what he had already spent years mourning. The room waited for him to explode, to accuse her, to seize her, to break something. Instead, he only asked, "What did you say?" Isabella forced herself to breathe. I don't know you. The words struck him. She saw it. Not on his face, not exactly, but in the way his hand slowly closed at his side. A man like Nico Santoro had built his life around, never showing pain, but Isabella watched it move through him like a blade sliding between ribs. The club owner rushed forward. Mr. Santoro. There must be some mistake. She is only a pianist. American. No trouble. Nico did not look away from Isabella. What is your name? He asked. Isabella Hart. His expression darkened. That is not your name. A cold ripple passed through her. Yes, it is. No, he said. It is the name someone gave you so you would not remember the one that mattered. Isabella stood so quickly the piano bench scraped against the floor. 2 bodyguards shifted. Nico raised one hand without looking at them, and they froze. Isabella noticed that too. Men obeyed him before he finished moving. I don't know what you want, she said, her voice steadier than she felt, but I'm not interested in whatever this is. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, not yet. Recognition, pain, possession held on a chain. You always said that when you were afraid, he murmured. Her stomach dropped. I said I don't know you. I heard you. Then leave me alone. Someone in the club inhaled sharply, as if she had just signed her death sentence. Nico stepped closer. Isabella forced herself not to move back. For a heartbeat. He lifted his hand. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. Close enough that some forgotten part of her nearly leaned in, but he did not touch her. His hand lowered. Who brought you here? He asked. No one. Who gave you that passport? I don't know what you're talking about. His jaw tightened. Who told you to play that song? No one, she snapped. It just comes into my head. That broke something in him. Not visibly, not dramatically, but the cold around him changed temperature. He turned his head slightly toward one of his men. Lock the doors. The club owner went pale. Mr. Santoro. Now, the doors were locked. Phones disappeared from tables. Men straightened in their seats. A few reached slowly beneath jackets, until Nico's bodyguards looked their way. And those hands returned to view. Isabella's pulse pounded. What are you doing? Nico looked back at her. Keeping you alive. A laugh escaped her, brittle and disbelieving. From who? Before he could answer. The front windows of the club exploded inward. Gunfire tore through the red light. The world became screaming glass, overturned chairs, and bodies diving beneath tables. Isabella froze, stunned by the violence ripping through the room. Nico moved before she could think. He grabbed her wrist, pulled her behind him, and shielded her with his body as bullets shattered bottles across the bar. His coat wrapped around her like night. She smelled rain, expensive cologne, and smoke. He pushed her down behind the piano. Stay low. I don't. Isabella. His voice was calm, absolute. Stay low. She obeyed, not because she trusted him, because when he said her name, some broken part of her remembered being safe. Nico drew a gun from beneath his coat and fired back with controlled precision. No panic, no wasted motion. Around him, his men moved like shadows trained by war. The attackers outside were not random. They were organized, silent, and willing to die. Isabella crawled behind the piano, hands shaking against the polished floor. A bullet struck the wood above her head, and she gasped. Nico turned instantly. For the first time, his composure cracked. Isabella. She looked up. Their eyes met through smoke and red neon. And for one impossible second, she remembered him. Not his name. Not his empire. Just his face above hers in rain, his hand covered in blood, his voice breaking as he said, "Don't leave me." Then the memory vanished. Nico reached her, grabbed her around the waist, and pulled her through a hidden side door behind the stage. They plunged into a narrow corridor lit by flickering blue emergency lights. Behind them, the club erupted into chaos. Let go of me. Isabella fought against his hold. He did not release her until they reached a service stairwell. Then he turned, caging her between the wall and his body without touching her more than necessary. The restraint felt more frightening than force. Listen to me, he said. The men who just opened fire did not come for me. Her breath shook. They came for you. That's impossible. You played a song that has not been heard in 3 years. So what? It was our wedding song. The stairwell seemed to tilt. Isabella stared at him. Rainwater dripped from his coat. Smoke clung to his shoulders. His face remained controlled, but his eyes were not cold now. They were ruined. Our? She whispered. Nico's mouth tightened. Yes. No. I know. No, she repeated, stepping back though there was nowhere to go. I don't have a husband. You did. The word did hurt him more than it hurt her. She could hear it. I'm not married. You were married to me. Isabella shook her head violently. I would remember that. His gaze dropped for 1 second, like the sentence had found the deepest wound in him and pressed hard. You don't, he said. That is the problem. The lights flickered above them. A crash echoed from downstairs. Nico's attention snapped to the stairwell door. The cold returned. Immediate and lethal. We move. I'm not going anywhere with you. He looked back at her. Then you die here. The brutal honesty stopped her. He did not soften it. He did not beg. He did not explain. But when his eyes locked on hers, she understood something that scared her more than the gunfire. This man would drag the city into flames before he let anyone take her. And he hated himself for it. They escaped through a back tunnel into the rain. Tokyo blurred around them in neon streaks. Black SUVs waited in the alley, engines running, doors open. Men spoke into earpieces. Somewhere behind them, sirens began to wail. Nico guided Isabella toward the center vehicle. She pulled away. No, I need answers. You need distance first. I need my life back. His expression hardened. Your life is the lie they built around your silence. Before she could respond, another shot cracked from above. The bullet struck the side mirror beside her head, exploding glass across her shoulder. Nico's control vanished. He seized her, pulled her against him, and turned his body between her and the rooftops. His men shouted. One pushed open the SUV door. Another fired upward. Isabella felt Nico's heartbeat against her cheek. Fast. Human. Terrified. Not for himself. For her. Get in the car, he said. This time, she did. The SUV tore into Tokyo's rain-soaked streets, flanked by 2 others. Isabella sat rigid in the back seat, Nico beside her but not touching. His men spoke in Italian and Japanese through encrypted radios. Every few seconds, Nico looked at her reflection in the window as if checking whether she might vanish. She hated that she noticed. She hated more that some part of her wanted him to look. Where are you taking me? She asked. A safe house. I have an apartment. No. You have a room they allowed you to sleep in. Her stomach twisted. Who are they? Nico's face turned toward the window. The people who buried my wife while she was still breathing. Silence filled the car. Isabella looked down at her hands. Pianist's hands. Thin fingers. Short nails. A faint scar crossing her left palm she had never remembered getting. She rubbed it. Nico saw. His gaze sharpened. You cut it on broken glass, he said quietly. She stilled. When? He did not answer immediately. The night you disappeared. A flash slammed through her. Rain, marble, glass everywhere. A white dress torn at the hem. Her hand bleeding. Nico's voice behind her saying, Run. Isabella gasped. Nico leaned forward, but stopped himself before touching her. What did you see? She pressed a hand to her temple. Nothing. Do not lie to me. I don't know, she snapped, turning on him. You show up in my club, tell me I'm your dead wife, people start shooting, and now you're acting like I'm supposed to remember a life I don't have. His eyes darkened. I am not acting like anything. You keep looking at me like I betrayed you. That hit. For the first time, Nico looked away. The SUV entered an underground garage beneath a luxury tower overlooking Tokyo Bay. Steel doors sealed behind them. Men with weapons checked every corner before Nico opened the door. I thought you were dead for 3 years, he said, voice low. Then I found you playing our song in a club owned by my enemies. Forgive me if I am not handling it gently. Isabella stared at him. There was the monster everyone feared, and beneath him, something bleeding. The penthouse safe house was too beautiful to feel safe. Glass walls looked over the black water of Tokyo Bay, where rain scratched silver lines down the windows. The furniture was modern, expensive, untouched. A grand piano stood near the far window, its black surface reflecting the city lights like a coffin full of stars. Isabella stopped when she saw it. Nico watched her. She looked at him. Did you put that there for me? Yes. When? His silence answered. Not tonight. Long before tonight. Her skin prickled. How long have you known I was alive? I did not know. That's not what I asked. Nico removed his wet coat and handed it to one of his men. I have searched for you every day since you disappeared. The words were not romantic. They were obsessive. A vow turned into a punishment. Isabella crossed her arms. And now that you found me? His eyes returned to her. Now Tokyo shuts down. By dawn, it did. Nico Santoro closed ports, froze private flights, blocked underground banking channels, and ordered every club, hotel, casino, and harbor contact under his influence to report any movement connected to Alessio Varga. Isabella learned the name from overheard whispers. Alessio. Every time it was spoken, Nico's jaw tightened. Who is he? She asked the next morning. Nico stood near the window. Sleeves rolled to his forearms, phone in hand. Surrounded by men who treated his silence like law. My half-brother. Is he the one who tried to kill me? He is the one who profits if you stay dead. She frowned. Why? Nico dismissed the men with a look. They left without argument. Isabella hated how alone she suddenly felt with him. Nico walked to the bar and poured water, not whiskey. He placed it on the table near her. Close enough to be considerate. Far enough not to feel like pressure. You were not only my wife, he said. You were witness to my father's final will. Isabella's pulse shifted. Your father? Salvatore Santoro. He controlled the old empire before me. My half-brother believed he would inherit the ports, the banks, the political protection, the families sworn to us. Nico's expression sharpened. Then my father met you. Me? You were hired as a pianist for a private dinner in Sicily. You were supposed to play for one night and leave with your paycheck. The grand piano by the window seemed to breathe between them. What happened? You saw Alessio murder a councilman in the garden. Isabella's mouth went dry. I would remember seeing that. You did remember. Nico's voice dropped. For 6 months. You remembered everything. The room tightened. You protected me as a witness? I tried. And then married me? His eyes held hers. No. Then I fell in love with you. Isabella looked away first. Not because she believed him. Because part of her did. The next 3 days passed like a fever dream built from danger and almost touches. Nico never left her unguarded. He assigned men outside her door. Men in the elevator. Men in the garage. Men watching the building across the street. But he did not lock her in. The penthouse doors remained open in theory. The city beyond them remained deadly in practice. Isabella tested him once. She walked to the private elevator with her coat on and no plan except escape. Nico was waiting inside. He did not look surprised. Going somewhere? He asked. To breathe. I own a rooftop. I don't want air you own. Something like amusement almost touched his mouth. Almost. Then I will borrow some from the city. She should have been angry. She was angry. But 10 minutes later they stood on the rooftop in cold rain, Tokyo glowing beneath them like a living circuit board. Nico kept a careful distance. Close enough to shield her if someone fired from another building. Far enough to let her pretend she was free. You're always watching me, she said. Yes, at least deny it. I do not lie well to you. The honesty unsettled her. Did you watch me before the club? His silence stretched. She turned toward him slowly. Nico. His name felt strange in her mouth. His eyes changed when she said it. Like he had been starving for the sound and hated himself for needing it. I had men watching the Red Lantern after a rumor reached me, he said. An American pianist in Tokyo. No past. False documents. A scar on her left hand. Isabella swallowed. So you were spying on me. I was confirming whether a dead woman had learned to breathe again. And when you knew? I didn't. But you suspected. Yes. And you didn't come to me? His face hardened with old pain. I saw you laughing with the bartender. The words came out colder than they felt. Isabella blinked. Kaito? Nico's gaze shifted to the skyline. He touched your shoulder. Something hot and incredulous moved through her. You're serious. No. You are. He looked back at her. I had no right to jealousy. You did not know me. I told myself that every night. Every night? Nico said nothing. The answer was in the silence. Isabella's anger faltered. You sat outside? Across the street. In the rain? Usually. The image struck her with terrifying force. This man, feared by cities, sitting in a black car beneath Tokyo rain, watching a woman who did not remember being his wife. It should have felt invasive. It did. But it also felt unbearably lonely. Why didn't you come in? She asked softly. Because you looked peaceful. He said it like a confession. And wherever I go, peace ends. Their eyes held too long. Rain gathered on his lashes. A drop slid down the side of his face. Isabella had the impossible urge to wipe it away. She did not. Nico's gaze dropped to her hand. He almost reached for it. Then stopped. That restraint hurt more than touch would have. Behind them, the rooftop door opened. One of Nico's men appeared. Boss. Nico's cold mask returned. What? We found Dr. Arai. The name meant nothing to Isabella, but her body reacted. A cold wave passed through her. She gripped the railing. Nico saw immediately. What did you remember? A room, she whispered. White walls. Someone telling me not to fight the medicine. Nico's face became terrifying. Bring the car. Dr. Kenji Arai lived in a private clinic hidden behind a wellness center in Ginza. The kind of place where rich people paid to disappear from consequences. By the time Nico arrived, the building was already emptying. Nurses fled through back exits. A receptionist sobbed into her phone. 2 security guards decided, wisely, not to stop the Santoro men. Isabella walked beside Nico through polished white halls that smelled like antiseptic and orchids. Every step awakened something. A hallway. A clock ticking. Her wrists strapped down. A soft voice saying in English, "When you wake, you will be safe." She stopped outside a locked treatment room. Nico turned. What is it? She could barely breathe. I've been here. He looked at the door, then at his men. Open it. Inside was a memory disguised as a medical suite. A reclining chair with leather restraints, monitors, cabinets of medication, a piano recording device on the counter, and on the wall, behind a movable panel, photographs, dozens of them. Isabella at the Red Lantern, Isabella at the market, Isabella outside her apartment, beneath a clear umbrella, Isabella asleep on a train. Nico went utterly still. Isabella stepped closer, trembling. Some photos were recent. Some were older. In one, she stood on a balcony wearing a white dress, her hair pinned up, her face turned toward a man partly cut from the frame. Nico. Her wedding day. She touched the photograph. A memory cracked open. Sicily. Warm wind. Lemon trees. Nico standing before her in a black suit, not smiling, but looking at her like she was the only honest thing left in his life. You don't have to do this, he had said. She had replied, I know. If you marry me, they will use you against me. Then give them something to fear. The memory vanished so suddenly she staggered. Nico caught her by the arms. For 1 second, his control broke under his hands. His grip was protective, desperate, almost reverent. Then he released her as if touching her burned. What did you see? He asked. Our wedding. The words changed the room. Nico's breathing shifted. Isabella stared at him, tears rising without permission. I married you. His voice roughened. Yes. Was I happy? Pain moved through his face. You were brave. That's not what I asked. Nico looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, You smiled only when you thought I wasn't looking. Her chest hurt. Before she could answer, a soft clap came from the doorway. Well, a smooth voice said, that is almost romantic. Nico turned. A man stood at the entrance in a gray suit, elegant and relaxed, with pale eyes and a smile too charming to be trusted. He looked like Nico in fragments, the same aristocratic bone structure, the same darkness polished into power, but where Nico felt like a storm held back by discipline, this man felt like poison poured into crystal. Alessio, Nico said. The name lowered the temperature of the room. Alessio Vargas smiled at Isabella. My God. They told me you were playing piano again, but I thought it was a joke. Nico moved slightly in front of her. Alessio noticed and laughed softly. Still doing that? Standing between her and consequences? Nico's voice was calm. You have 10 seconds. To run? Alessio looked amused. For my own clinic? Nico's men raised their weapons. Alessio did not flinch. Careful, he said. If I die here, the file goes public. Nico's jaw tightened. What file? Alessio's gaze shifted to Isabella. The one proving she betrayed you. Isabella's blood went cold. Nico did not look at her. That somehow hurt worse. Alessio stepped into the room slowly, hands visible, enjoying every second. You never told her that part? How disappointing. I thought great love required honesty. Leave, Nico said. Ask him, Isabella. Alessio's smile sharpened. Ask your husband why you ran from him the night you disappeared. Her breath caught. Nico's face revealed nothing, but his silence did. Isabella backed away from him. Nico? His eyes flicked to hers. Not here. That means yes. It means not here. Alessio's voice softened, cruelly intimate. You discovered Nico had arranged a fake marriage to secure his inheritance. You thought he used you. You stole the witness drive, ran to give it to me. And then the accident happened. No, Nico said. The word was quiet. Murderous. Alessio tilted his head. No? Then tell her. Tell her she did not come to me. Tell her she did not hand me the one thing that could destroy you. Tell her. She did not come to me. Isabella looked at Nico. Did I? His eyes held hers, full of something too complicated to be simple denial. Yes, he said. The room fell away. Isabella felt as if the floor had opened beneath her. I betrayed you? Nico stepped toward her. You thought you were saving me. From what? From myself. Alessio laughed. Nico turned so fast, the air changed. A shot cracked. A light shattered. Chaos erupted. Alessio ducked behind the door as his hidden men opened fire from the hallway. Nico seized Isabella and pulled her down behind the medical chair. Glass burst across the room. His men returned fire. Alarms screamed. Isabella covered her ears, shaking. Nico crouched in front of her, shielding her again, his body a wall between her and the violence. Look at me, he ordered. She did, barely. You did not betray me. You just said I gave him the drive. You gave him a fake. Her heart stopped. What? Nico's eyes burned into hers. You knew Alessio was watching you. You knew someone had poisoned your memory once already. You pretended to believe I had used you so you could get close enough to him. A memory slammed into her. A dark hotel corridor. Isabella holding a small silver drive. Nico standing across from her, furious and devastated. You want me to let you walk into his hands? He had demanded. I want you to trust me. I trust you. I do not trust the world with you in it. You can't protect me by keeping me in a cage. I can if the alternative is burying you. She had stepped close then, touched his face, and whispered, Then don't bury me. Find me. Back in the clinic, Isabella gasped as the truth tore through her. I planned it, she whispered. Nico's face tightened. Yes. With you? His silence told her the answer. Not fully. That was the wound. More gunfire erupted. Nico pulled her toward a side exit. They ran through the clinic's back corridors as alarms flashed red. Isabella's memories came in brutal fragments now, her own voice. Alessio's smile, a needle in her arm. Nico screaming her name from the end of a hallway. They reached the underground garage. Alessio's men were already there. Nico pushed Isabella behind a concrete pillar as bullets struck the cars around them. One of his SUVs exploded into flames, lighting the garage in violent orange. A man lunged from behind a van. Nico disarmed him with terrifying efficiency, cold and precise, but not careless. Never careless. Violence lived in him, but it did not rule him. It obeyed him, until one of Alessio's men aimed at Isabella. Then Nico lost control. He moved like something unleashed. By the time his men pulled him back, the attacker was down, and Nico's knuckles were split. His breathing was harsh. His eyes found Isabella's immediately, as if her face was the only thing capable of bringing him back from the edge. She should have been horrified. A part of her was, but another part understood the terrible shape of his fear. He had lost her once. He would burn every version of himself before losing her again. They escaped in a black sedan with cracked windows and smoke trailing behind them. This time, Isabella reached for his bleeding hand. Nico went still. She wrapped a cloth around his knuckles with shaking fingers. He watched her like she was a miracle he did not deserve to keep. You're afraid of me, he said. Yes. His face closed. But not only of you, she added. His eyes lifted. I'm afraid of what I remember when I'm near you. The admission sat between them, fragile and dangerous. Nico looked down at her hand over his. I never wanted your fear. No, she said quietly. You wanted my trust. His mouth tightened. I had it once. The sedan moved through rain and neon. Isabella did not let go of his hand. Nico took her next to a hidden safe house near Yokohama Harbor, a low concrete building surrounded by fog, shipping containers, and black water. It was less luxurious than the penthouse, more fortified. Steel doors, narrow windows, men stationed on rooftops, a place built not for comfort, but survival. Inside, there was another piano. Older, wooden, slightly out of tune. Isabella stared at it. Nico stood behind her. You keep putting pianos in cages, she said. I keep hoping one will feel like home. The sentence was too honest. She turned. Did I love you? Nico's face became still. Yes. Did you love me? He looked at her as if she had asked whether the sea was wet. I still do. Her breath caught. He did not move closer. He did not use the words as a weapon. That made them more dangerous. You say that like it cost you something, she whispered. It cost me everything. The fog pressed against the windows. For a moment, the war outside disappeared. Isabella stepped toward him. Nico's body tensed, but he stayed still. She lifted her hand toward his face. He closed his eyes before she touched him. That broke her heart in a place she did not remember giving him. Her fingertips brushed his jaw. A memory opened gently this time. Not blood, not fear. A quiet morning in Sicily. Nico sitting beside her at a piano, pretending not to understand music while watching her hands. She had laughed and told him he looked like a man trying to interrogate the moon. He had said, "If the moon kept secrets from me, I would." She had kissed him first. The memory faded. Isabella pulled her hand away. Nico opened his eyes. She whispered, "I loved you." His expression almost broke. Then the door behind them opened, and one of his men entered. "Boss, we found the child." Everything in Nico changed. Isabella's blood went cold. "What child?" The man hesitated. Nico's voice dropped. "Leave us." The man obeyed. Isabella stared at Nico. "What child?" Nico did not answer fast enough. "Nico." His face was harder now, not cold. "Protected. There is something Alessio used to control you before the accident." Her heart began to pound. "No. You need to sit down." "No." His eyes darkened with pain. "Isabella, tell me." Nico held her gaze. "You were pregnant when you disappeared." The room went silent. Not empty silent. Destroyed silent. Isabella stepped back as if he had struck her. "No. I did not know until after." "No. You lost blood in the accident. Alessio's doctor falsified the records. We believe the baby died." She could barely speak. "But—" Nico's throat moved. But there was no body. No official certificate. Only a private transfer record to a clinic outside Kyoto. Isabella covered her mouth. The world blurred. A child. Her child. Their child. A memory shattered through her, her hand pressed to her stomach. Nico kneeling before her in a candlelit room, his forehead resting against her, his voice rough as he whispered, "I have been feared by kings, and I am terrified of someone this small." She sobbed once, the sound torn from somewhere deep. Nico stepped forward, then stopped, fighting every instinct to hold her. Isabella looked at him through tears. "You knew? I suspected 2 days ago. And you didn't tell me?" "I needed proof." "No." Her voice broke. "You needed control." Pain flashed in his eyes. "Yes. The honesty hurt worse. You don't get to decide when I can survive the truth." "I know." "Do you?" she demanded. "Because you keep doing it. You keep standing in front of doors, secrets, memories, bullets, and you call it protection." His face hardened, but his voice stayed low. "I watched you die in my arms. But I didn't die." "No," he said, and now the control cracked. "You vanished." Which was worse? The words ripped through the room. Nico turned away, one hand braced against the table, his breathing uneven. The feared Mafia Boss. The man who could shut down Tokyo with one phone call, breaking in silence because the woman he loved was alive and wounded by him all over again. Isabella wanted to hate him. Instead, she understood too much. That made it worse. "Where's the child?" she asked. Nico turned back. "A private estate in Hakone. Alessio has kept her hidden under another family's name." "Here?" His eyes softened with devastation. "Ah, girl." Isabella's knees nearly gave out. Nico was there instantly, but he did not touch until she reached for him first. She gripped his shirt, and he held her carefully, as if she might disappear if his hands closed too tightly. "Our daughter," she whispered. "Yes." For the first time since the jazz club, Nico's voice broke. "Our daughter." They left for Hakone before sunrise. The convoy moved through mountain roads under heavy fog, black SUVs cutting through pale dawn. Isabella sat beside Nico, wrapped in his coat, staring at the road ahead, while memories returned in fragments. A nursery painted cream, a tiny silver music box, Nico standing in a doorway pretending not to cry. Then another memory, Alessio's hand on her shoulder, his voice smooth and poisonous. "Nico will keep you locked away forever. Give me the drive, Isabella. Give me the proof. I can end the war." She had known he was lying. She had played the part anyway. And then something had gone wrong. The estate in Hakone sat beyond a locked iron gate, surrounded by cedar trees and mist. It looked peaceful in the way expensive prisons often did. White walls, stone paths, a pond still as glass. Nico's men surrounded the property. No shooting unless fired upon, he ordered. There may be children inside. Isabella looked at him. Hefelt her gaze. What? You sound different. I have always had rules. I'm remembering that. For a second, something almost warm moved between them. Then a shot rang out from the gatehouse. The war began. Nico pulled Isabella behind the SUV as his men advanced. The estate erupted in controlled chaos, gunfire, shattered stone, alarms echoing through the mist. Isabella's body trembled, but her mind stayed sharp. Somewhere inside was her daughter. That single thought cut through fear. She saw a side entrance near the east wall. Nico. No. You don't even know what I'm going to say. You have that look. What look? The one that usually ends with me wanting to lock you in a tower. Despite everything, she almost laughed. Then another shot struck the SUV. Nico's face hardened. Stay behind me. They moved together through the side garden, his body always angled toward danger. Hers scanning windows, doors, signs of movement. Near the rear entrance, a young woman in a nurse uniform appeared, trembling, hands raised. Please, she whispered. There are children upstairs. Nico lowered his weapon slightly. Isabella stepped forward. Is there a little girl here? 3 years old. Dark hair? Maybe named? The nurse's face changed. Leah. Isabella stopped breathing. Nico went still beside her. Where? He asked. The nurse looked toward the main house. Music room. Isabella ran. Nico cursed and followed. The music room was on the second floor, bright with morning light and filled with expensive toys no child had loved properly. A small piano sat near the window. Beside it stood a little girl in a white sweater, dark curls falling around her face, clutching a silver music box. Isabella stopped in the doorway. The child looked up. Her eyes were Nico's, but her expression, the careful, searching softness, was Isabella's. For a moment, no one moved. The little girl held the music box tighter. Nico stood behind Isabella, silent as if the wrong breath might shatter the moment. Isabella knelt slowly. Hi, she whispered. The little girl watched her. I'm Isabella. The child frowned. Mama? The word broke her. Isabella covered her mouth, tears spilling instantly. She did not rush forward, did not frighten her. She just opened her arms and waited. The little girl took one step, then another, then ran. Isabella caught her, holding her with a sound that was half sob, half prayer. The child's small hands clutched her neck. The music box pressed between them. Nico turned away, but not before Isabella saw him break. His hand covered his mouth. His shoulders trembled once. A man feared by families, governments, and killers stood in a child's music room and silently fell apart. The girl looked over Isabella's shoulder at him. Papa. Nico froze. Slowly, he turned. The child watched him with solemn recognition learned from photographs or whispered stories. Nico lowered himself to one knee. He did not touch her. He waited, just as he had waited with Isabella. The little girl studied him, then reached out and placed her tiny hand on his cheek. Nico closed his eyes. When he opened them, there were tears in them. Yes, he whispered. Papa. The reunion lasted less than 1 minute before Alessio's voice came through the hallway speakers. Touching, truly. Nico rose slowly, placing himself between the door and his family. Isabella held Leah close. Alessio appeared on a monitor mounted in the corner of the room, smiling from somewhere else inside the estate. You found the child. You found your wife. You found your little tragedy. Congratulations, brother. Nico's face became deathly calm. Run while you can. I don't think so. Alessio leaned closer to the camera. You have something I need. Isabella knows where the real Will is. Isabella stiffened. Nico glanced at her. She shook her head. I don't remember. Alessio smiled. You will. That is why I kept the child near the music box. Isabella looked down. The silver music box in Leah's hands. Her breath caught. She opened it. A familiar melody played. Not the wedding song. A lullaby. And beneath the sound, a memory unlocked. Sicily. Nico's father dying in a candlelit mansion. Isabella sitting beside a safe, translating his final words because the old man trusted no one else. The empire does not go to blood, Salvatore had rasped. It goes to the one who still has a soul. He had given her a key. Not metal. Music. A sequence of notes. The will was hidden inside the old Santoro chapel beneath the family villa in Sicily. Isabella looked up. I know where it is. Nico's expression changed. Alessio saw it through the camera. There she is, he said softly. My favorite ghost. Then the music room door exploded inward. Nico turned, firing once, twice, moving with terrifying focus. Isabella pulled Leah behind the piano. Smoke filled the room. One of Nico's men appeared at the side entrance, shouting for extraction. Nico grabbed Isabella's hand. This time, she did not pull away. They ran with Leah between them, through smoke, down a back staircase, into the garden where fog swallowed the chaos. A helicopter thundered above the estate, descending into a clearing beyond the trees. A rooftop helipad without a roof. Wind tore through Isabella's hair as Nico lifted Leah into the aircraft. Then he turned back for Isabella. A shot cracked from the trees. Nico's body yerked. Isabella screamed his name. He stumbled but stayed standing, one hand pressed to his side. Get in, he ordered. You're hit. Get in. No. His eyes flashed. Isabella. She stepped into him, grabbed his face with both hands, and said the words before fear could steal them. I remember loving you. Do not make me remember losing you too. Everything stopped. Even in the roar of helicopter blades, even with gunfire tearing through the fog, Nico looked at her as if she had just returned his soul. Then he kissed her. Not gently, not softly, not like a man who had time. It was desperate, restrained only by the war around them and the child waiting behind them. His mouth met hers with 3 years of grief, rage, longing, and devotion. Isabella kissed him back with memories still broken, but heart terrifyingly whole. Then he pulled away, forehead against hers. I am not leaving you again, he said. Then move. For the first time, Nico Santoro almost smiled. They escaped into the storm-gray sky. The war followed them across continents. Within 48 hours, Nico moved Isabella and Leah to a private Sicilian villa overlooking the sea. The Santoro estate rose from cliffs like a kingdom built by ghosts, stone walls, cypress trees, iron gates, candlelit halls, and a chapel older than every crime committed in its name. Isabella walked through it like a woman entering someone else's dream. But the memories were louder here. Her hand on the banister, her laughter in the kitchen, Nico watching her from a doorway, a nursery, a fight, a goodbye, and beneath it all, the chapel. At midnight, while Leah slept under guard in the safest room of the villa, Isabella followed Nico through a tunnel beneath the estate. The walls were damp stone. Candles flickered in iron sconces. Every step echoed. You should stay upstairs, Nico said. You've got to stop starting sentences that way. I'm serious. So any. He looked at her, tired and wounded, and still trying to carry everything alone. She stepped closer. I am not the woman from Tokyo who didn't know your name, and I'm not the woman from Sicily who thought she had to save you by disappearing. I am both. I am scared. I am angry. I am in love with a dangerous man who keeps deciding what pain I'm allowed to feel. His eyes darkened. I know. No, you're going to learn. A beat of silence. Then Nico nodded once. For him, it was surrender. Together they entered the old Santoro chapel. Moonlight fell through cracked, stained glass. Dust floated in silver beams. At the altar stood a stone angel with broken wings. Isabella walked to the organ against the wall and placed her fingers on the keys. The lullaby, then the wedding song, then 3 notes only she had known. A stone panel behind the altar clicked open. Inside was a sealed box. Nico took it out carefully. The final will of Salvatore Santoro. The proof that Alessio was disinherited. The evidence tying him to murders, bribes, betrayals, and the illegal sale of children born into mafia bloodlines, including Leah. Isabella's hands shook. Nico saw. This time, he did not hesitate. He covered her hand with his. Look at me. She did. This ends tonight. Before she could answer, a voice echoed from the chapel entrance. Yes, Alessio said. It does. He stood between the pews, dressed in black now, no charm left, only hatred polished clean. Behind him came armed men, not many, but enough. Some wore Santoro colors. Betrayers. Nico stepped in front of Isabella. Alessio laughed. Always the same. Shielding her like devotion makes you noble. No, Nico said calmly. Devotion makes me predictable. That is why you keep losing. Alessio's eyes flicked to the box. Give me the will. No. Then I kill her. Nico did not move, but Isabella felt the shift in him. The old fear. The wound Alessio had used for years. Lose her or surrender. Except this time, Isabella stepped out from behind Nico. No, she said. Nico's head turned slightly. Isabella. She ignored the warning. Alessio smiled. There she is. Still brave. Still foolish. Isabella held his gaze. You erased my life. You stole my child. You made me believe my own mind was broken. And yet, Alessio said, you survived. You should thank me. Nico moved so fast, one of Alessio's men flinched. Isabella touched his arm. He stopped. That small obedience stunned the room more than violence would have. Isabella looked at Alessio. You wanted the will because you thought power was inheritance. She stepped closer to the altar. But Salvatore was right. Power belongs to the person who still has a soul. Alessio's smile vanished. Behind him, footsteps echoed. Not Nico's men. Others. Older men in dark suits entered through the side chapel doors, heads of allied families, Sicilian council members, men who had once doubted Nico and feared Alessio. Isabella realized the chapel's hidden microphones had been turned on. Nico had let Alessio confess. Alessio understood too late. His face twisted. You brought witnesses? Nico's voice was calm. No, my wife did. For a heartbeat, the word wife moved through Isabella like fire. Alessio reached for his weapon. The chapel erupted. Gunfire shattered stained glass. Candles fell. Men shouted. Nico grabbed Isabella and pulled her behind the altar as bullets struck stone. The council guards returned fire. Smoke filled the holy air. Alessio broke through the chaos, lunging for the box. Isabella saw him before Nico did. She grabbed the heavy silver candle holder from the altar and swung with everything she had. It struck Alessio's arm. The gun fell, skidding across the stone. Alessio snarled and grabbed her wrist. Nico's restraint ended. He crossed the space like a storm. The fight was brutal and fast, two brothers shaped by the same empire and poisoned by different hungers. Alessio fought with desperation. Nico fought with purpose. When Alessio pulled a knife, Isabella's heart stopped. Nico caught his wrist inches from his chest. Their faces were close. You should have stayed dead, Alessio spat. Nico's voice was low. I tried. He drove Alessio back against the stone angel. The broken wings cracked behind him. Nico could have killed him. Everyone in the chapel knew it. For Isabella, for Leah, for 3 stolen years. For every nightmare Alessio had planted inside her mind. Nico's hand tightened. Then Isabella said softly, Nico. He froze. Not because she commanded him. Because her voice reached the part of him violence could not. He looked back at her. She shook her head. Don't give him the last piece of you. The chapel went silent around them, except for the distant sea and falling glass. Nico looked at Alessio. Then he released him. Alessio sagged, stunned. Nico stepped back. You wanted my empire, he said. Now you can watch it survive without you. The council guards seized Alessio. As they dragged him away, he laughed once, broken and venomous. She will remember everything eventually, he called, even the parts where she hated you. Nico did not answer, but Isabella walked to him. In front of the council, the guards, the shattered chapel, and every ghost between them, she took his wounded hand in hers. I already remember enough, she said. Nico looked down at their joined hands. Something in him finally, quietly, surrendered. 3 months later, Tokyo was still raining. The Red Lantern no longer existed. Nico had shut it down, stripped it of its criminal ownership, and rebuilt the basement club into something Isabella insisted the city actually needed: a legal jazz hall with clean exits, honest contracts, and no men allowed to treat women like furniture. Nico pretended to hate the idea, then funded every detail. On opening night, Isabella stood backstage in a black silk dress, listening to the low murmur of the audience beyond the curtain. Her memories had not returned all at once. Some days were clear. Some still had blank spaces. Sometimes she woke from dreams of white rooms and reached for Nico before remembering he was already there. He never asked her to be the woman she had been. That was the difference now. He did not demand memory as proof of love. He earned trust in the present. Slowly. Imperfectly. Every day. Leah sat in the front row wearing a velvet bow, guarded discreetly by men Nico trusted with his life. She kicked her little shoes happily beneath the chair, holding the silver music box in her lap. Nico stood beside Isabella backstage, dressed in black as always, powerful enough to make every investor in the building nervous without saying a word. But when he looked at her, the danger softened into something private. "You do not have to play it," he said. Isabella smiled faintly. "Our wedding song?" His jaw tightened. "It belongs to you, not to grief." She studied him. "Are you afraid I'll remember something painful?" "Yes." "Are you going to stop me?" A pause. "No." That one word meant more than any vow. Isabella stepped closer, adjusting his tie though it was already perfect. "You're learning." His hand lifted to her waist, then stopped, asking without words. She answered by moving closer. His palm settled carefully against her. "I am trying," he said. The honesty warmed her more than any perfect apology. The stage manager called her name. Isabella turned toward the curtain, then looked back. "Nico." His eyes found hers. "I didn't come back because of the song." He went still. "I came back because some part of me knew you were still looking." For a moment, he could not speak. Then he took her hand and kissed her knuckles with devastating restraint. "I will always look for you." The curtain opened. Light spilled across the stage. Isabella walked to the piano as the audience applauded. She sat beneath soft gold light, no longer hiding in red neon, no longer playing for criminals who did not know her name. Her fingers touched the keys. In the front row, Leah smiled. At the back of the room, Nico stood in shadow, watching over them, both still dangerous, still feared, still a man the world would never fully understand. But Isabella understood enough. He was not healed. Neither was she. Their love had not erased the violence, the betrayal, the stolen years, or the scars left by memory. It had done something harder. It had survived them. She began to play. The wedding song filled the room, soft and aching, but this time it did not sound like a ghost calling from the past. It sounded like a door opening. Nico closed his eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, the most feared mafia boss in the world did not look like a man waiting for loss. He looked like a man finally standing inside the life he had burned cities to protect. When the final note faded, Isabella looked across the room at him. Nico's eyes opened. Their daughter clapped. The audience rose, and beneath the applause, beneath the Tokyo rain, beneath every secret that had tried to bury them, Isabella remembered one last thing. A vow. Not from the wedding. From the night she disappeared. She had touched Nico's face in the dark and whispered, "If I forget you, make me fall in love with you again." Across the room, Nico watched her like he had heard the memory too. Isabella smiled through tears, and this time, when he came to her, she did not run. She stood beneath the golden stage light, took the hand of the dangerous man who had loved her through death, memory, war, and silence, and let him lead her out into the rain. Not as a ghost, not as a prisoner, not as a woman rescued by a monster, but as a woman who had chosen him twice. Outside, Tokyo glittered around them. Black cars waited at the curb. Rain fell softly over Nico's shoulders as he wrapped his coat around Isabella and lifted Leah into his arms. For once, no one was chasing them. No gunfire cut through the night. No locked door stood between them and tomorrow. Isabella leaned into him. Nico looked down at her. "Home?" he asked. She touched the silver ring on his hand, the one she had once forgotten and now remembered in pieces. "Home," she said. And as their car disappeared into the neon rain, Tokyo kept shining behind them, a city that had once hidden her, hunted her, and finally watched her return to the man who never stopped searching.